herbs and cherry tomatoes and eggplant and capsicums and whatever we are growing at the time is what we are using in the restaurant. It's obviously not big enough to self-sustain the restaurant, but what it does, it makes the chef there, become very seasonal. So, he has to use whatever we're growing. And one of the dishes there that we do, we actually serve it on a Himalayan salt brick. And what that does is actually season the tuna straight away. We didn't bring one in because they're quite fragile, and we were always worried on the plane, even though it's the best airline in the world, Singapore Airlines. We didn't want to break it. Is that right, Ben? Ben's actually my head chef at Aria Restaurant, Aria Sydney. Now the first dish is a little bit of yellowfin tuna, which is sashimi grade. We've just got that into a block, and what we're going to do is cut that into nice little cubes. Now there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can actually just dice it all up, but what I'm going to do is very carefully, is just from the top, and I'm just going to cut down like that, and just trim it all up, so it's quite square. Now all these offcuts, we don't throw them out, that's what we call staff dinner, so we keep all the offcuts and we feed all our staff. I tell you what, they're not that underfed, are they, really? Huh? Well, can't say I'm mean, can you, Ben? Huh? Right, so what we're going to do is just cut it into some nice little cubes. Poor old Ben's got no response there because he doesn't have a microphone. Oh, well, bad luck. Has anyone here been to Aria Restaurant in Sydney?
Yes, we got one lady over there.
One lady? Yeah. Where have the rest of you been? It's been there for 13 years. One guy at the back. Do you travel very often? No? Right, just going to do a couple more little squares. Right, we're going to get a nice plate there, Ben. And what we're going to do is also a little bit of avocado puree. Now, we're not going to make the avocado puree because Mr. Peter Knipp told me that I had 45 minutes. It's been cut down to 30 minutes because Sanjeev Kapoor, who I actually love Sanjeev, I worked with him on Singapore Airlines, he took an hour and a half. But anyway, he's obviously getting paid a lot more money than me, obviously. Avocados, really ripe, make sure they're ripe. We just puree them with a little bit of sugar syrup, so it gives a little bit of sweetness, but to combat that sweetness, we have to put a little bit of acidity in it. So we just put a squeeze of lime juice, and we've got a little bit of wasabi powder here that we just add it to. Because it's obviously raw tuna, wasabi goes really well with raw tuna. We just add a little bit of that just to give it a little bit of a kick. I've already made some, and I've just put it into a little squeegee bottle. A little bit of cucumber, which is just a telegraph cucumber. We actually put that into a little bit of pickling liquor. So it can be, any sort of pickling liquor. We add mustard seeds, a little bit of chili, just to give it that little bit of flavour, and we just steep it in there. We actually don't cook it. We just let it sit in there and just sort of slowly pickle a little bit, yeah? Got a little bit of wakame seaweed here, which we actually got from, so what's that? Yeah, it's got a ginger dressing in it, so it's a little bit of soy mirin and a little bit of ginger in it, so it just gives it a little bit of kick, and a little bit of baby coriander here. Now I've got a herb that I'll show you later, which up at Prime Society we went foraging. We found a little pepper herb, which is absolutely to die for. So I'm just going to cut the top of that off. I don't know whose squeegee's bottle. That's probably Sanjeev's. I'm just going to put a little bit of cucumber. Now Chiswick would normally have this on a salt block, a Himalayan salt block. I don't know whether you've ever seen it, but there's a butcher shop in Woollahra in Sydney that actually has a whole wall made out of the Himalayan salt brick. And every 2 years he's got to replace the whole wall because it just starts to dissolve. One more there. Right, a little bit of avocado puree. Then put some dollops. This is very simple, very Chiswick. Now it's really all about the quality of the ingredients. Right, a little bit of pickled cucumber. You're very quiet, aren't you? Huh? See, in Sydney you'd be disrupting or making noise. Has anybody been up to the Prime Society yet and had a meal? No?
There's a lady in front who has, right?
Yeah? With me, you came last night or the night? Yes. But just in general, does anyone go up there and eat there? Because it's got some pretty good Australian meat up there also. Right, so a little bit of cucumber, a little bit of wakame seaweed. That around. And you're really just relying on the beautiful quality tuna for this dish, yeah? If you don't have good quality tuna, it just won't work. A little bit of baby coriander. That on the avocado. And guys, there's our first dish. That's more the chick style, but it's very simple, very easy, and obviously very, very tasty. So I'll just put this down the end. You get a good shot of that.
Chef, before you go on to your next dish, I was told that you have a very special video that you brought along, and I thought maybe you'd like to...
That's right.
Shall we show that?
Yeah, I've actually got a new website, which actually you can't see it, but I think it goes live in the next couple of days, which is mattmoran.com.au. And we put a lot of video content, so we actually did a lot of recipes, and we made this little doggo. So have a quick look at that.
Something about growing it, nurturing it, and then cooking with it, or feeling it, or cutting it up. It just, I don't know, it feels right. It feels like passion. When I'm cooking at home, I just want to be by myself and just create. I don't want to be a Gordon Ramsay or a Thomas Keller or a Heston Blumenthal. I want to be all three of them. I want to be Matt Moran. As an early age, I just felt as though this is what I want to do. It just felt natural to come up with dishes and put food on a plate. In my early life, I was very blessed. We lived on a farm. Unfortunately, when I was 8 or 9, we lost the farms and we basically moved out west. And it was rough. It was really, really hardcore and tough. 15-year-old, big kids from Blacktown didn't become chefs. I really just wanted to leave school. I just wanted a job. And then the defining moment was when I first started my apprenticeship. And the first day I went into a serious kitchen and I saw food that I'd never seen before. The lights just went on and I thought, oh my God, this is what I want to do. It wasn't just a job anymore. It was, I knew from that moment, it was a love affair. That was a great feeling. At Le Berlin, my first restaurant that I worked at, we did a minimum of 90 hours, 6 days a week. There was no rest for the, faint-hearted. You had to be committed. It was really hard, believe it or not, to discipline me back in those days. I was a pretty wild child. I was a shocker. And knowing in a kitchen that, if I didn't do what I was told, I was out on my ear. So I actually really enjoyed that discipline part. I thrived on the discipline. The first 5 years was basically learning how to cook. And then the next sort of 3 years was learning how to use ingredients and simplicity in food and letting the ingredients talk rather than the actual cooking technique. Pinnacle moments in my time being a chef. I think the pinnacle moment was leaving La Belle and going to Manfredi and seeing something completely different. And that kind of, revitalised me in many ways. Meeting my business partner, Peter Sullivan, back in those La Belle days and then talking about, doing something else. And then after that, I went out on my own. Paddington was my first restaurant. I was only 22 and all of a sudden I felt free and I could do whatever I wanted when it came to food. I basically started teaching myself, whether it was through travel, eating out, reading books. All those combinations sort of, made me the chef that I am today. Every restaurant that I've owned or built kind of made you strive more and more and made you feel ambitious again. Walking into Aria every day to me is, it's a highlight. You get this massive adrenaline rush and, it feels great. It's my baby and it always will be. I was only 30 when we started Aria, a magnificent restaurant on Sydney Harbour looking over the Opera House. And it was a massive gamble, a massive risk. That restaurant cost a lot of money, and it was, you know, a big restaurant. You know, it had 50 staff, I think, when we started. Now it has about 80 staff. It put us in the big league. The brand Ari was so strong, you know, we decided that we wanted to put it somewhere else. We wanted to replicate what Ari Sydney was and what it stood for, and Brisbane just stood out. It's developed into its own style, its own food. You know, the climate in Brisbane is very different, so the food is different. It's got its own identity. You know, I keep thinking every year I might slow down a little bit, but it just seems to get busier and busier. RE Catering is probably the fastest growing business that I've got. We will do anything, you know, you can do boardrooms, weddings, we can do corporate events. You know, it's just a thriving business. Chiswick, when it came about, it was more casual, simple food. You know, it's a food that I cook when I'm at home. We grow vegetables there, we grow herbs there. If we're growing eggplants, we're using eggplants. We're growing cherry tomatoes, we're using cherry tomatoes. So it makes the restaurant very seasonal. You know, it's all about sharing. It's a way I love to eat. My father ended up moving back to the land. Him and I and his younger brother own a property together, Green Hills, which supply the restaurants with fat lamb and a bit of beef cattle. He's an inspiration. He's on the farm and he's producing great stuff, and that's what he loves. A lot of people over the years have said, you know, if you weren't a chef, what would you be? There's nothing else I could be. There's nothing else I want to be. There's nothing else that excites me. Cooking and running restaurants is my life.
Well done.
Wow.
I forgot about that. you know why? Because it's only new, and in fact that's the first time it's been seen. So I forgot all about it. But that gives you a bit of an insight to the Aria restaurants and Chiswick. You see that beautiful garden in Chiswick? They're growing all our own herbs. Anyway, second dish. We're doing a little crab, Alaskan crab, scotched egg. Now I'm sure you've heard of a scotched egg before. It's generally, you know, meat with a big hen's egg in it, or a chook egg. Do you know what a chook is? The other day I called it something a chook, and everyone looked at me and thought I was mad because they didn't know what a chook was. Yeah, in Singapore you don't have chooks, you have chickens. Yeah, same thing. Anyway, so what we've got, because we want to do a little entree style or size, we're actually using quail eggs, which are these tiny little eggs here. Yeah, I'm sure you're all familiar with quail eggs. So what we actually do is we blanch them in hot water for a minute and 40 seconds, take it straight out, put it into some ice cold water, let it sit there for about 5 minutes, and then we just peel them. So it's just a nice, soft quail's egg, and that's going to be the middle of the scotched egg. And the outside of it, we've got a little bit of scallop meat here that we've just pureed, so it's nice and soft, and it's going to be the actual binding of the actual mix. So put a little bit of scallop meat in. Now, Alaskan crab meat, I'm sure you're familiar with this. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It's got amazing texture, and that's going to be the fluffiness around the outside. So we actually add the crab meat and the scallop meat together.
Now, if somebody, chef, were to try to do this at home and they couldn't get their hands on the Alaskan crab, they use just the ordinary seasonal crabs? Would that be fine?
You can. You can substitute with, and if you really wanted to, you could probably use a little bit of, you know, like a beautiful white fresh fish, and blend that, and that could be the binding also. So we're just going to mix that around. A little bit of salt and pepper in it. Do we have any salt and pepper there, Ben? We don't. It doesn't matter because no one's going to eat it. Sanjeev ran off with our salt and pepper. Right. A little bit of pepper. Thanks, Ben.
Mix it. Would it be so much? Maybe you could mix it right here.
Mix it right there on the stove.
So you've got the overhead cam there. There you go.
So what we're going to do is make sure you've got clean hands or gloves. We're going to make it into a little ball. Yep. First. Once you've got it into a ball, we're going to grab our quail egg. Just going to make a little indentation and just put it in the middle, and very carefully just roll it round.
Don't mind me, I'm just going to move it.
Are you?
Within view of the camera.
She just wants to get closer, that's all, chef, really.
Yes, there we go.
Right.
There you go.
So we've got our little ball. Can you see that?
Nice move, Maggie.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty good, Maggie.
This is.
Do you want me to move over?
Yeah, shall I just do it like that? Just move it on. Don't mind me.
Do you want me to get up on the
No,
bench?
it's There we go. Is that okay?
It's not the first time I've been on the bench.
Oh, would be for me.
Something just went terribly wrong there. Insinuating, right.
Now, for some people, actually, to
So a little bit of flour.
hold everything together, they actually mix the flour in with the crab and all that. Could we do it that way, or do you have to do it this way?
You have to do it this way.
You have to do it this way.
Because you don't want flour to be in the middle of it. You don't want it to become floury.
Okay.
So we're just going to roll that in some egg. You're probably best off to have gloves on. And just pane it. Now these breadcrumbs are the panko crumbs,
Okay.
Japanese breadcrumbs.
So just for Hamish's sake, because I think you're moving a bit too fast for him.
Yes.
So
Good.
it's flour, egg,
yeah,
and breadcrumbs. Yeah.
Flour,
okay.
eggs, and breadcrumbs. And then we have our little ball. What we're going to do that is just quickly deep fry it for a couple of minutes until it goes golden brown. And then just let it sit and rest for another minute or so, just so it actually goes in. The heat penetrates and goes right into the middle of it. So I'm just going to leave that sit there. And while that's cooking, it's not cooking, obviously we've got that side, I'm just going to make a little salad. Now, when you have fish and chips, I'm sure in Singapore you guys have fish and chips. What you always have with your fish and chips is generally, a wedge of lemon, yeah? And
Yep.
the reason why you do that is the batter around the fish is very fatty, and it tastes very fatty, yeah? So you have a little bit of lemon juice to cut that fattiness, so it gives it a beautiful balance of, fattiness, but also has that beautiful acidity. It makes you feel better about yourself because you feel as though you're not eating, the thick batter around the outside. Same thing as what we're doing here. We're actually going to have a salad and or tartare sauce you have with the fish and chips also. So we're kind of making our tartare sauce and our wedge of lemon. So we've got a little bit of celeriac here, which is a root vegetable, and we're just going to put that into a bowl. We've just julienned that really, really fine. And we've got a little bit of cornichon. Just going to add a little bit of cornichon. A little bit of preserved lemons. Got that lemon flavour in there also. A little bit of mayonnaise, or aioli, garlic mayonnaise. Just going to mix that around. Someone just told me I've got 10 minutes left. Yeah? Did you see the video earlier? What did it say? I struggle with discipline. Yeah? It's a shocker, isn't it? Right, a little bit of lemon. Gonna get a nice wedge. Get rid of all the seeds. Can you see that? There's a lot of seeds in this. It must be... It's not an Australian lemon. Must be English, Ben. Huh? That's true, actually. Ben's from London, actually. But in saying that, he's been working in Aria Kitchen now for just coming on 9 years. He struggles with discipline too, yeah? Right, so we're just going to put a little bit of our celeriac in the middle of the plate. Now we've got some little bit of fennel here, or dill, and this is actually from Dallas's garden, also up at Dempsey Hill. We'll put a little bit of that around.
I can see the sadness in the cameraman's face because he can't capture
Right,
the one from...
right.
Yeah, so here we go, here we go.
I just have an issue with plating up on a stove. Right, here's our Scotch egg that we cooked. Yes, nice and golden brown. It's going to sit on top, so it's like a little bird's nest, yeah? So Scotch egg's bird's nest, and there's our next dish, guys.
Nice.
Yeah?
Very nice.
Right, last dish. This is a very Aria dish. What we do is we use Trevalla or Bass Groper. What we've got here is a little bit of French Bass, and we've just doubled it over so it's quite thick. We're just going to steam that, and what we do is we get a nice, beautiful, darn or centre cut piece. All the offcuts, we cryovac it and put it into a bag. Now you can see all the offcuts in there. There's a little bit of oil there's some aromatic herbs and a little bit of water. What we do is we cook that at 85 degrees for about 20 minutes, yeah? So it just slowly cooks it, starts to set the protein, and once it's cooked, we whack it into, I won't do it because we don't really need to, we whack it into a KitchenAid and we slowly beat it for about 20 minutes. And we add a thickening agent called xanthan, which is it comes from one of the textures, what do you call it? Ranges, textures, which is developed by the guy from El Bulli. And what it is, it's a natural thickening agent. And it just sort of starts to combine everything and starts to emulsify the oil and the water, and it all basically comes together. And we only use about a quarter of a teaspoon for that. I've got a little bit here that you can see, and it looks like brandard. You know, brandard is salt cod, and it has normally a little bit of mashed potato in it. But you can see because the xanthan has started to thicken it and set it, it looks as though it's got mashed potato in it, but it actually isn't. So we're tricking you. So I'm just going to steam. Yeah, a little bit of salt. Just going to put a little bit of olive oil on it too. I'm just going to steam that for a couple of minutes. Ben's going to keep an eye while I get the rest together. Now we're going to heat our cod or bass, and I'm going to add some little shallots to it. Now I talked before when we did the Scotch stag about having fatty flavours and adding a little bit of lemon to it, or preserved lemon and cornichon to give that beautiful acidity. Now we've got the same thing happening here. We actually need a little bit of acidity. So what we've done, we've got some beautiful little oyster mushrooms, and we've pickled them just in a pickling liquor. So we basically heated the pickling liquor up, added our little oyster mushrooms, and it's just like pickled mushrooms. So we're going to add a pickled mushrooms, and that will just give it that beautiful acidity also. Also, we're going to serve on the side of it some little dark grapes, purple grapes. What we've done is we've just added a little bit of sugar syrup to them, just to sweeten them up, and then we've just put them into a dehydrator, and we've just slowly started to dehydrate them. So they kind of look as though they're like a muscatel, but they're actually a fresh grape that's just had a little bit of moisture taken out of them. And it's a really good combination with this dish.
So let's say you didn't want to use sea bass, or there wasn't any sea bass. Could you use any other kinds of fish?
Look, you need a really sort of meaty white fish. Okay. So whether it's a cod, sea bass, or you could use snapper, yeah, but a nice big thick piece of snapper, yeah, not really really thin because it'll overcook. Also, what we've got here is a little bit of quinoa. I'm sure you're quite familiar with quinoa grain. What we do is we boil it for about 10 minutes to cook it. Then we lay it flat onto a tray, and we dry it out in the oven. And then we quickly fry it, and it actually pops up and has this beautiful crunch. It's actually really nice on cereal for breakfast, believe it or not. And we've just then added a couple of little chopped pine nuts, and that's going to be the crust of it. We've also got this herb that I was talking about earlier. It's a little bit of native black pepper, or pepper that we actually found in Dallas's garden up at Dempsey Hill. Just be careful if you run up there to go foraging. Make sure you do get the right thing, because I'd hate for you to go and grab the wrong thing and die, you know. There was a couple of Chinese chefs in Australia about 2 years ago that went picking mushrooms in the forest, and they were from Canberra, and they didn't know what mushrooms they were cooking, and both of them died. Yeah. Anyway, right, a little bit of jamon ibérico, which is Spanish ham. And it's just been fed a diet of acorns, and it is the best jamon in the world, yeah? It's not cheap though, you know, really good prosciutto, you pay $30 a kilo. A really good jamon, you could pay up to $300, $400 a kilo, yeah? So it's not cheap. Right, so we're just going to start plating this up. So I've got our brandard, or our, fake brandard, which is warm, middle of the plate. Grab our little grapes. Put around the outside. Nice and neat. How's our fish going, Ben? That's good, ready? I'm just going to grab that lemon. What happened to our lemon? Right, our fish comes out. Same thing again. We want to have that little bit of acidity, so we just put a little bit of lemon juice over the top. and a few seeds. Right, and just grab our quinoa and our pine nuts. Grab our little spatula. Oh, before I do that, tiny little bit of ham on. Come on, Ben. Huh? Perfect. And then just add a little fish on top. Grab a little bit of extra virgin olive just around the outside. And our little pepper herb. Can you see that there? It's got to be in the middle. Right. Little pepper herb on top. And there we go, guys. There's our third dish, yeah? Yep.
Wow.
Fantastic.
You know, over there.
Oh.
No, I didn't take anywhere near as long as Sanjeev, did I? That's it, guys. 3 done. Quick, smart, done.
Do we have any questions?
Any questions?
Any questions for Chef Matt, very quickly, because I know we're running on a tight schedule, but since you've got him here on stage, if you have a question, fire away, yes.
So I can't hear that.
Which part of the tuna are you using?
That's
and
the
what
loin.
length?
So the mid cut and the loin, which is obviously the nicer piece, not down the tail end. The tail end you tend to get a little bit of sinews running through it, but it's actual the mid cut, so it's right in the middle of it, the centre piece.
What knife are you using? A very sharp,
A sharp one.
Very sharp one.
The sharpest one you can find. And a big one.
I always find that sharp knives are better than blunt ones. The reason being, you actually, if the blunter the knife, the more chance you have of cutting yourself. And the reason being, because a blunt knife you use more pressure, and more pressure is when you get a little bit loose, and you're a little, off skew, and that's when you make mistakes.
So when you purchase the tuna, let's say, if you don't use up the entire piece, how long can you keep it?
Well, look, tuna, when it's fresh, you really want to eat it.
Okay, so you just want to use it, finish
you
up on
basically
that
buy
day.
it to use it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless you have all those offcuts,
Yep.
keep them as long as you like, because they're going to starve anyway.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
If not, thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Ladies and
guys.
gentlemen, Chef Matt.